This is Patrick with Top Tier Top Lane Guides, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different than the other ones. Usually I've focused on things that you can do inside the game of League of Legends to improve, or mentalities to take, or certain things that are, I would say, overall more important than what I'm going to go into today. But what I'm going to go into today is pretty important as a base to cover. There's not a lot of information on how to improve your mechanics, and that's because a lot of it is just you have to be focused and be pushing yourself. That's why I advocate going for 50-50s and all that stuff. But there's a few things you can do to make sure that you're in an environment that lets you learn the game as best as possible. And what you want to do to get inside that environment is make sure that your input is consistently what you're getting out. That's why it's easier to improve on 100 ping than it is to improve on a ping that's fluctuating between 30 and 50, at least from my experience, because you know exactly what's going on and you know what to expect out of your champion. So what you want to do is get yourself to a situation where shit is working. It doesn't have to work ideally, but it has to work, and it has to work consistently. So in this video, I'm going to go over everything that you should cover, all your bases, and there's a few things you've probably heard here, but I'm going to go over them anyway. Just keep this. I want this channel to be a pretty all-encompassing resource eventually, so getting that there. Now, you've probably heard this, so I'm not going to spend too much on it, but what you want to do is you want to go to Settings first, and then you go to Device, Mouse, Additional Mouse Options. Now, you're going to want to change your pointer options to the middle. That's 6 notches out of 11, and you're going to take off Enhanced Pointer Precision. Now, there's a lot of professional players that have pointer precision on. Taking off pointer precision is pretty good for making sure that your mouse is 1-to-1, how much you're swiping, with how much input is happening. I'm sorry, how much your mouse is moving on the screen. But because it is consistent, you don't have to do this, but it is recommended that you do these two things. If you really don't like it, you can always swap back. Now, you should also have your league in-game settings set to, you should have them set to 50, and this, hopefully you just go to mouse speed. I also recommend you, if you have multiple Smurf accounts, changing things like camera move speed to the same thing. If your Smurf, because of settings are being account specific now, you might notice a big difference if you have like 50 on one Smurf and 80 on the other. So it's nice to know exactly the numerical settings. It's nice that they've offered numerical settings, and just making sure those are the same. The next thing that you're probably going to focus on, or that you should focus on when doing this, is making sure that your gear is good enough. Now, good enough is relative. I want you to know that before I go into this, Smeb in Season 6, where he was considered the world's best top laner, pretty much unanimously, used I believe a Logitech G100, which is an old fucking mouse. But he used it and he competed with it while everyone else is using all these new age gaming mice because he was comfortable with that. So keep that in mind. My first season, my best mechanics that I've ever had was when I was like 17. I was playing on 110 ping. I had a Logitech wireless mouse and keyboard set. And I famously, in the middle of team fights, would have to readjust my mouse and keyboard just to continue playing, because the transmission, it would stop detecting the wireless signal, and I would have to move it to get it into a position that I could actually continue to use abilities. And I didn't comprehend anywhere near as much about the game as I do now. I wasn't a coach back then. I hadn't had that long history of trying to learn the game in a different way. I was really more of a mechanical player, and I was best back then. And now I have a lot of great gear, and I still can't compete with that. So keep that in mind. As long as stuff is relatively consistent, it should be good. Obviously, that was not an ideal setup for me either. The next thing you want a nice mouse pad. Just go out. I have a $10 SteelSeries quick mouse pad. All it is it's rubberized coating on the bottom and it's cloth on top, and you don't need to spend more money on an ideal mouse pad. Just get something that sticks to your desk so it isn't moving around and is big enough for your purposes. Okay, if you have lower DPI, you might need to think about a larger mouse pad. My keyboard is on half of the mouse pad, and it's perfect for me. I play on 2000 DPI with a 24-inch monitor, and that is just fine, and you just want it to not move around. The next thing is, if you are looking for a new mouse, this is something that's actually really worth considering, and that's why this page has been opened. It's not just random. This website, rocketjumpninja.com, is a great resource for basically linking your hand size to and your grip to the mouse that you'll want to use. So a palm grip is essentially you're resting your hand over the mouse, and your palm is on the back of the mouse. And your finger should be relatively horizontal. Claw grip is kind of like that. You've got your the back of your palm is against the back of the mouse, but your fingers are a bit more arched, and they're pressing the keys, but the middle of your hand is above and resting over. A fingertip grip, this is what I use, holds the mouse kind of by the sides, and you actually don't make any contact with with the mouse with your palm at all. Now, because I said that old Logitech wireless mouse and keyboard set, that mouse was about the size of a peanut, so I got really used to, even though I have big hands, using small mice. So that goes back to doing what you're comfortable with. But if you don't feel like you have a specific preference that you really like, because like I said, I tried to swap to a bigger gaming mouse at one point, and I just could not handle it within 3 months. And then one day, I was back to playing better with that little Logitech mouse. So say you've got medium hands and you run a claw grip, then it can take you to just a shit ton of different mice that are probably within your within what you want. Another thing is that there's a lot of like other stuff to think about. The mouse having Omron switches is relatively good because they're lighter. It's good for spamming in League. The sensor doesn't matter that much. I don't want people to get too weird about this. Like, most pros don't play with a 3360, which is the best sensor. And like I said, even like Smeb played with one that was far below par, and there's a lot of pros that play with mice that don't have the best sensor. We tend to think of ourselves as robots, and that's just not the case. So it's good to find yourself a mouse that you like and isn't necessarily have the best sensor and stuff. And there's a lot of things that can matter a hell of a lot more than sensor for pragmatic usage. The last thing is just, you want to have somewhat fast gear. Like, some mice have longer reaction times. Some keyboards, mechanical keyboards, obviously have shorter reaction times than membrane keyboards. There's certain monitors that have quicker, not just frame rate and refresh rates, but they have faster responses from when the initial input, like how fast the screen actually changes pixels when new colors come up or whatever. All this stuff matters a little bit, but we're talking like at max a difference of like 30 to 50 ms when human reaction time is easily above 200. And then your internet, so this is really not that much, and it does not feel the same as playing on an extra 30 ping as when you're playing on a keyboard, because it's just your input. It's not what you're observing as well. So I wouldn't worry too much about these things if you can't afford them. If you're in the market to get new stuff and you want like durable good gear, then get something, but don't go crazy. Don't like try to get top of the line everything, because it's not going to make you a better player, I promise you. These are just a few things to get you in the right direction, to make sure that you're consistently, like, you feel good about your gear and you feel like that's not a choking point. Because if you feel like that's a choking point, if you feel like you just need to have your genius recognized, then you're never going to realize you're not a genius, and you need to actually, improve at the game like we all do. So that's it. Peace.